Hey everybody, this is our first time doing a lesson virtually. So I am doing a Screencastify here to record my voice and to walk you through the lesson. Because this is the first time we're doing it, we're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes, you're going to make mistakes. We're just going to roll with it and do the best we can and then try and figure things out later and get better for next time. So this is a lesson on volume for math. It's out of our measurement unit. I decided to pick this one because we haven't gotten to it yet, and it's pretty straightforward. So I will walk you through the lesson on this slide deck, but in your Google Classroom, you'll also find your own copy of exactly the same slide deck that you can edit and interact with and then submit for work. So here are the curriculum expectations from the grade 7 curriculum. I'm just going to screen them quickly because you can read them on your version of the slide deck. But the big ideas here are that the volume of a 3D figure is the amount of space the object occupies, and that formulas can be used to find the volume of prisms. So in the past, we've already looked at perimeter and area for different polygons. In grade 4, you did perimeter and you did area of a rectangle. In grade 5, you did area of a triangle. In grade 6, you did area of a parallelogram. And this year, we've looked at area of an irregular object, which is an area of an object that's made up of different shapes. If any of this is something you've forgotten or is confusing to you, every one of these little blue Study Jam links will take you to a Study Jam where you can go through a review of that lesson. So I know some of you might need this, and you're welcome to take your time and go through this. Some of you don't, you're ready to move on. But they're there and that's available for you. If you find that what we're doing here is too challenging for you, go back to the Study Jams, figure out where you are, and let me know, and we'll work from there. So earlier this year, we did area of a trapezoid. And after all of our discoveries, we realized that the formula that works best is this formula here. The base plus the base divided by 2 times the height. So here's our bases, base 2 and base 1. So remember, we could turn this object to put either of these sides on the bottom. So that's why they're both called the base. And really what we're doing here is we're finding the average. So what's the base 1? What's the base 2? Let's divide it in half. That will give us an average. And then we're multiplying it by the height. And if you recall, the height is not this length here on the perimeter. It is the widest part of the object. So if we put real numbers in here, let's say we had 4 and 6 and 3 for the height. The 6 and 4, base 1 and 2 are added up. It doesn't matter the order. We know that because of our commutative law in addition. And we divide it by 2. So our 6 and 4 divided by 2 becomes 10. And that 10 divided by 2 becomes 5. And then we're going to multiply that by the height, which is 3, and we get 15 square centimeters for this object. Again, if you need a review on the area of a trapezoid, this blue link will take you to all the lessons we did in class so you can review it. So again, the big ideas as we move forward here are that the volume of a 3D figure is the amount of space the object occupies, and that we can use formulas to find out the volume of any prism. Our terms that are going to be important are rectangular prism, which is a 3-dimensional object with 2 rectangular bases. Think about a block of butter, if you bought a block of butter in the store. And a triangular prism, which is a 3-dimensional object with 2 triangular bases. If you take a look down here, this is a good example of a triangular prism. And we're going to be dealing with right prisms, which are prisms where the bottom base, this triangle here, is aligned with the top base, not an oblique, which is where it's on more of an angle. This is a much more complex formula, and you won't get to that till high school. Remember, the volume is the amount of space a 3-dimensional object occupies. So you can go back to these terms anytime. They are in that slide deck. So here's the first activity I'd like you to try. At a bakery, they make fresh and delicious loaves of bread. The bread is sold whole, or you can ask the baker to slice the bread. When looking at the outside of a loaf of bread, what do you see? Once the bread is sliced, what do you see? And then the question that's going to be asked is, can you slice a loaf of bread multiple ways? What's the difference? So I think the conventional way we would slice bread would be this way, and that would be perpendicular to the base, but we could also slice it parallel to the base, or we could slice it on an angle. So down here, tell me about the difference between those slices. And if I go out of the slide deck for a second, you can see that there is a box there where you're able to type in your response. Okay. Moving on to the next page. On this one, I want you to move the words from the word bank into the correct blanks. So these word blocks down here are movable, and you can put them wherever you feel they belong in each blank. So I will let you take care of that. The next activity is a little trickier. We're going to look at the idea of a cross section and complete the table below. So if we had a rectangular prism and we were to cut it parallel to the base, what would the cross section look like? If we had a rectangular pyramid and cut it parallel to the base, what would the cross section look like? And then the same thing for a cube. What if we cut it perpendicular to the base? And what if we cut it at an angle? So here's what I would like you to try here. Up in the top under Insert, you will see that there are shapes. And there are lots of shapes there to grab, and you're going to use those shapes to draw it in. Now, if you'd prefer to do this by hand and just take a photograph of it, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. You can also go to Flipgrid. Just let me know in Edmodo which Flipgrid you went to, and you can explain your work there as well. But if we think about the first one, our rectangular prism, if I were to cut it parallel to the base, cutting it down straight down this way would be perpendicular to the base. Parallel to the base would be as I cut it across this way. So what I'm going to end up with, the cross section is going to look like a rectangle. So what I might try and draw there is Insert, Shape. I'll grab myself a rectangle, and I think it would probably look like that if I were to cut it perpendicular. Now, if I was going to cut it, that parallel. If I was going to cut it with a perpendicular line coming this way, what would that look like? And what would it look like if I cut it on an angle? So what we're trying to get you here is the idea of understanding the different cuts that can happen and how a cross section of an object works. So after you get that done, you are done day one. So be sure to fire off any questions you have to me through Edmodo. I will get back to you as quickly as possible, and do your best on this activity. And hopefully we can all be done it, and I can have some feedback for you when we move on with the next lesson tomorrow. All right. Thank you.